You'll have revenge. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. Now you will experience the full power of the dark side.
Welcome, followers of the Dark Side of the Light. I'm your host, John, the real JP3, and I'm joined as always by my good friend and fellow co-host, who is a master of the dark side, expert on the occult, and obtainer of rare antiquities and holograms. Please welcome Dark Lord of the Sith.
John, I don't know if you know this, and I'd hate it if you were one of the peeps, but UFC 246, the main event card was over in 40 seconds.
So
the Mad Irishman came back.
I
with
heard
some
about
heat.
that.
He came back with some heat. Came in
Wasn't
hot, man. I love it.
Wasn't that the same thing as the Ronda Rousey and whatever her name was, that fight they over in 30 seconds?
It was, but Ronda didn't win that one.
Yeah, Ronda didn't win. I forget the other.
I forget who it was.
Emily something, or I can't remember. It was
remember.
Holt or something. But yeah, it was over in 30 seconds, and people paid all that money for just that.
Yeah, I stopped paying for fights back when that last Floyd Mayweather fight in Pacquiao. Which the most disturbing thing out of that fight, and guys, this isn't a boxing podcast. You're in the right spot. We're talking Star Wars, but the most disturbing thing about that fight is when Floyd Mayweather was walking through the tunnel getting to the ring, the Burger King mascot was standing behind him. 4 people deep, the Burger King mascot. That it weirded and creeped me out. I'm sure it was just an advertisement thing. He got some cabbage for it, but it was just creepy because the King was walking behind him, getting all pumped up. And I was like, man, the King's getting in the ring. Is he gonna fight Jack in the Box next? What's going down?
Wendy's.
Oh, that's sexist, sir. Can't do that.
I had Wendy's chicken nuggets today.
I like some nuggies. But yeah. Balance of the Force podcast, episode 131, I believe. Is that right, Johnny?
That's correct.
I'm talking with a little bit of a little hint of British accent there. And it's funny because, the date for The Mandalorian and Disney Plus and all that jazz got moved up and it dropped. What's that date, John? I don't remember.
It moved up a week to March 24th instead of March 30th.
Okay, and then the cool thing is we posted it, and hopefully we got some people over there on the other side that listens and whatnot. And it's obvious because got a couple DMs, got a couple posts saying, "Hey, we've seen The Mandalorian. Don't ask how we saw it, but we saw it. The Crown doesn't need to know about it. We saw it on the DL." And if I was one of those peeps on the other side, I'd be doing the same thing, man.
Well, the Crown's been too worried about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle dropping out of the royal family.
Well, how do you think that kid's gonna feel? That's
what somebody else was saying.
That kid's gonna be like, "Mom, Pop, what are you doing? I could have been a prince."
Well, so apparently, guys, we swear this is a Star Wars podcast. So apparently, they do not get to retain their titles, but he is still 6th in line for the throne, which he'll never see it.
Hey,
there's a chance.
You don't know.
There always is a chance.
So is the kid the Half-Blood Prince?
He's still 6th in line for the throne. He still has that ability to take over if he needs to. But yeah, as far as that, he's no longer called His Royal Highness or Her Royal Highness. I thought it was kind of crazy that the Queen's making them pay back the $3.1 million they spend renovating their house.
Hey, the Queen can do whatever she wants. It's the Queen.
Well, I thought the funnier part was that his dad, Prince Charles, said for the first year he's going to be giving them $2 million to be able to live off of until they both find jobs and stuff. So the taxpayers are still paying for it.
How random would it be? And I know he's gonna find a job, a decent job, but how random would it be? You go up to a McDonald's over there in London, and you got Prince Harry handing you your nuggets and your sauce. It's just random. I love it.
With the security guard still standing. That's the other funny thing. Meghan Markle was in Canada and she was walking the dogs and the baby, and they still had two security personnel behind them. I'm like, the taxpayers are paying for that too. Like, it's just funny. It's politics. It's what it is.
He needs some Knights of Ren to get his back.
Oh, Knights of Ren.
Exactly. But yeah, we got a lot of topics going on other than the royal family, other than the illegal means of watching The Mandalorian on the other side of the world. We got some things. Got the Trevorrow script, the long rumored script of his and how finished it was, and we get a pretty good picture of what that film would have been.
Yeah, it's pretty decent photo. But before we get to that, we'd like to wish James Earl Jones a happy birthday.
A belated
happy birthday. His birthday was on Friday, January 17th, and he turned 89 years old.
Mufasa.
Yeah, like this guy is just wow.
His voice is by far extremely recognizable. I think his voice actually made Darth Vader what it is today. It was impactful. You know what I mean? It stood above the rest.
And I think there was somebody one time, I think it was at a celebration, that said like they really need to record that guy's voice so that like he can they can continue to use it when it was in his prime and everything else. And every time when I heard that, and then I see the movie Captain America Winter Soldier, like what is it? It wasn't the Russian guy. I forget the guy. The German guy, they put his brain in the computers to.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what I think about every time somebody says something like that.
That's just creepy.
I go back to it. So, but anyway, we'll get into that. Talking about old time's sake, 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back is this year.
Yeah. So we know we're going to get a taste of it at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim. I'm glad we got our tickets. Yeah, I said it right, John. I'm glad we got our tickets.
I was flipping through photos and deleted 800 photos off my phone of just posts, stuff that's on Facebook that I can just pull if I need to. I don't need it on my phone anymore. And I was like, I have a screenshot of the tickets that we bought, and I was like, I'll send this to Dave and be like, hey, FYI, we do have them.
You're like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but we got tickets to Celebration.
But anyway, so 40th anniversary of Star Wars Celebration. There's going to be, not Star Wars Celebration, Empire Strikes Back. Apologies. Funko Pop has jumped on the bandwagon, released a set of Empire Strikes Back Funko Pops. You got Han and Carbonite. You got Darth Vader in his, it's not a back to tank.
No, it's kind of like a meditation chamber sphere thing.
Looks kind of creepy. It's just his head. Then you got Han or Luke on the Tom. And
I love it. You
got so many other different little figures we posted on our social media. Go check them out. I'm sure more and more stuff is going to come out as we get closer. And not to mention, we still got May the 4th, which I think is going to be heavily, heavily dominated by the child merchandise. So we shall wait on that and see some more. In other news.
So are you going to pick up any of those Funkos?
No.
Are you going to pick up any of the child stuff?
No, but I'm going to buy a Funko Pop for Dave just to be mean.
I will end you.
Because I love to be mean.
Don't do it.
And because then he goes on this path. But then, so Dave's one of those people, and y'all should know this long enough listening to Dave and I. Dave will sell it on eBay, and he won't care how it makes the other person feel, because all he thinks in his mind is, I now have to buy the Funko Pops, and it's going to cost me a lot of money, and I don't want to go to that path because I don't have room, blah, blah, blah. So Dave would rather sell something like that on eBay, and then when you ask about it, he'd be like, I told you not to buy it. It was your own fault. And I don't feel sad for you, and I don't feel remorse for the fact of what I did. So get over it. And that's Dave. Just FYI, if you don't know Dave. But yeah. Although he said he wasn't going to get into this whole Black Series figure.
Which that's what I'm counting right now.
Look at him. Our motto is supposed to be a game that we played in our free time. He now buys the ships to decorate his podcast room.
Hey, that Superstar Destroyer looks awesome. I want to buy another one. I don't need it
That's
though,
long
but I
enough.
want to buy another one just to
You don't
have.
know. I keep telling him he needs to hang him from the roof in his bedroom. And I was like, because then he'll devise battle plans at
No,
night.
I can't do that. I'll never get to sleep. I'll be like, Delta
But
Squadron,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. It'll be ridiculous.
So anyway, get that going on. And then something else that we haven't heard of in a while or haven't heard about, besides the fact that, hey, we're putting a pause on the movies after The Rise of Skywalker. Our goal is to keep that course. But then several news articles and outlets started reporting that Taika Waititi has been approached to direct another Star Wars movie, an upcoming Star Wars movie. Don't know if it's a trilogy. Don't know if it's a single film. Doesn't know if it's an anthology. Don't know any of that information. All we know is that he has been approached, or that's what the articles are saying. And that was about a week. That was about a week ago, and we haven't heard anything since. So, as we know information, we tell you guys as long as we're not busy in meetings or something with work. But as soon as we can get that stuff posted, we try our best. But he did Thor Ragnarok. He did he voiced IG-11 in The Mandalorian. He directed, I think, 1 or 2 episodes of The Mandalorian in season 1. Just 1 episode.
The season finale.
This guy's got, he's got some experience with the House of Mouse. With the Marvel side, Star Wars side. So who knows what we could see. Deborah Chow's working on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, which was reported.
It's just rumors, conjecture. People were like, "Hey, it's canceled," and nothing officially has been said. They're not going to hype up Kenobi's return so big, so bold, make huge announcements, light everybody's fire, and then douse it out. They're not going to do that. So, Kenobi's still on.
And Kenobi's still on. That came from a news outlet that we do not trust and we do not use anymore. And if you go and look at the comments on their page when they post articles, everybody literally makes fun of them and says this is all fake.
We don't have it covered. We don't have it covered.
You do not have it covered.
That's all I'm going to go with. We don't have it covered.
And all they just keep saying is a reliable source. I believe your sources are not reliable. They've been reliable in the past. Well, the stuff y'all report is crap. So
yeah, every blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. You know what I mean? They're just as bad. And I'm just going to say it. The news outlet is, we got this covered. They're just as bad as this guy on YouTube. I used to watch his videos just to get infuriated. Mike Zero. Do you remember that guy? I think I showed you a couple of his videos. Like, oh my God, so much blatant nonsense and clickbaitness. It's ridiculous. Those are the people I dislike that make their living out of clickbait. Mike Zero, if you're listening, I got nothing else to say. Hit me in the DMs. We'll talk.
But anyway, so Obi-Wan Kenobi series is still on. Never was canceled. Don't think about it. They, Obi-Wan. Excuse me. Ewan McGregor has known about this for 4 years. There was a contract. You said he was growing out his hair, Dave. All that other good stuff. This is still on. It's going to happen. Don't worry about it. We're moving forward. That's all the big news that we've kind of seen or we've reported on. I'm sure there's tons of other stuff out there. We got books coming out later this year. New Year's still here.
Whoa.
Guys, just as a side note, we apologize. We haven't been hitting our 2 day a week episodes. Life has kind of taken hold for Dave and I, just different things. I was moving. I've had some family. I'm a new uncle. And my little sister had my first niece today. So there's been a lot of busyness in our families. So that's what's kind of going on. So we apologize. We're still here.
Yeah.
We still try to respond to everybody's comments. We appreciate it. There was even two listeners that were just going back and forth by themselves in the comments. Great. Like, that's what it's there for. You guys comment with each other. You talk to each other, whatever. You don't have to wait for us to say something. We appreciate it. So just want to let you know, we're going to try to get back to 2 episodes a week, but just understand there's been a lot going on. So.
Yep. And for those of you guys that comment, get a little rowdy and want to talk some nonsense and some conjecture, I'm going to see it, and my first response is going to be, don't be that guy. Or I'll say, don't be that girl. I remember one cat was like, oh man, like Kylo's such a little whiny, crying baby, blah, blah, blah. He's all, Anakin Darth Vader was never like that. My response is like, hey cat, did you watch the prequels? Have you seen the prequels? Let's slow down a minute. Like, calm down. Like we see Vader in the original trilogy as the darkness, the man he became, the shattered, torn, upset. Like I need to control myself, kind of thing. But he was a whiny little kid.
Yeah. So Dave does a very good job. We don't always respond back under the balance of the force. We usually respond under our own names. We don't care. We're going to say what we want to say, but sometimes it's difficult to find where we have to respond under the podcast. But Dave is very cordial for a couple of posts.
Yeah.
He politely warns you, and then at that point he will start saying stuff.
Well, not rudely, not like talking nonsense. Like if I talk, I want to talk with facts.
It'll be facts.
I want to hear their side, and I want to go back and forth as an educated conversation without name calling, without anything. Like, let's just talk facts. Let's just talk Star Wars. There's nothing wrong with a good debate between two different thought processes.
Yep. And guys, just as a fair warning, if it gets too bad or gets too inappropriate, I'm the delete guy. And I have no problem deleting comments. I have no problem hiding comments. We don't do it because we're ashamed of what was said or we don't want to talk about it or we just want to hide from it. We do it because it's a podcast that we want anybody and everybody to listen to. And so kids could be listening to us. And so we're trying to be as polite and respectful as possible, and so we will delete or hide the comment if it's too inappropriate.
And at the end of the day, it's Star Wars. This is all make-believe, guys. As much as I would love to have a physical lightsaber and go through hyperspace and all that other jazz, it's unfortunately not real. I would love it to be, but, you know, let's all dream, let's all be happy and enjoy our slice of Star Wars however we like it. Just like those people. Like, I love pizza. There's those people that like pineapple on pizza. I'm not a fan. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want pineapple on my pizza. But I respect it that that's their pizza. Just get it away from me. Don't try and shove your pizza in my mouth. Don't make it weird. Like, you keep yours over there, I keep mine over here. Let's live life accordingly.
I feel like you just saying that Star Wars wasn't real, Dave, is like just telling like kids that, you know, the Easter Bunny isn't real.
He's not real.
Dave.
It's
not your job to say. It's not your job to say those things.
It's 2020. They need to know.
No. You have Google at your fingertips. You should know these things.
Exactly. Anyways, what else are we talking? Come on.
So that's all the hot, high-hitting news that we had.
Randomly, people are starting to put kiwi on pizza. I've seen it. I don't condone it. I've seen it on the internet. It's gross. I don't even want to talk about it.
But that was just kind of the couple of the news facts that we have. The next biggest thing that we want to talk about, and Dave's already mentioned it, is, somebody released Colin Trevorrow's script that he wrote for episode 9 to the public, and a lot of people went through it. Star Wars News Net went ahead and listened to a YouTuber who had, and I tried to watch the YouTube videos thinking it was a synopsis. Like, each video was 2 hours long. And I was like, I'll just read this 33-minute article. So the articles are long. The YouTube guy, you can find their link at Star Wars News Net, or you can go to the link on our Facebook page and check them out. But the link for the two videos, they're literally 2 hour long videos that explain the script. So just as a heads up, we've gotten a lot of comments on the page as we've talked about it, and somebody brought up a very valid point. Why release it? At the end of the day, Lucasfilm is owned by Disney. So regardless of what Kathleen Kennedy does, and I'm sure they give her some autonomy to make decisions, in my opinion, that script was owned by Lucasfilm and Disney. So for it to be released, in my opinion, it had to have been somebody at Lucasfilm or Disney that said, hey, we're good with this. Like, I think at some point, Colin probably signed a non-disclosure agreement, and he got writing credit on The Rise of Skywalker. However, J.J. Abrams has been very clear about the fact that they basically started from scratch. So I don't know. I just don't think that Colin he probably has the script, but pretty sure somebody had to have released this with some power. That's my 2 cents.
No, and I'm pretty sure you're spot on. I didn't read the whole thing in depth like you did, so I'm going to rely on you to feed me some deets and we talk about it. I don't want to be here all night and talk about it, but I want to hit the high points. I want to talk about what we think would have been the better film, the Trevorrow script, or what we got from JJ. The one thing that I will say about Colin Trevorrow, I was first introduced to his work through the movie Safety Not Guaranteed.
Oh, great movie.
If you haven't seen that movie, guys, this is what put this man on the map. Fantastic movie, great story, great message, spirit behind it. It was a really well done movie for so many reasons, and I can't even get into it right now. And then he follows it up with Jurassic World. He continues the story of what Spielberg and all those guys did. Great movie. Visually attractive, appealing. It was a fun movie. It was a fun popcorn movie. I would have loved to seen what he would have been able to do with Star Wars, because that guy's a fan. And this script might be the closest we ever get to Colin Trevorrow making a Star Wars movie. Hopefully he gets another shot. Maybe it's a new story. Maybe it's the Knights of the Old Republic kind of thing. The High Republic, whatever you want to call it. But I would love it if that guy got a shot. Johnny, let's take it away.
All right. So the first thing I want to do is the opening crawls were completely different. And you actually get them. So I'm going to read both of them to you. The episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which we received in theaters by JJ. So here's episode 9. I'm sure you guys know it. You can Google it, but I'm going to read it, and then we'll read the episode 9 that Colin wrote. So it's at the dead speak. The galaxy has heard a mysterious broadcast, a threat of revenge in the sinister voice of the late Emperor Palpatine. General Leia Organa dispatches secret agents to gather intelligence, while Rey, the last hope of the Jedi, trains for battle against the diabolical First Order. Meanwhile, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren rages in search of the Phantom Emperor, determined to destroy any threat to his power. Okay? Rise of Skywalker. That's what that one was. This is episode 9, Colin Trevorrow, who he titled the movie Duel of Fates.
Oh, man. I love that track.
And this is his opening crawl. The iron grip of the First Order has spread to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Only a few scattered planets remain unoccupied. Treacherous acts are punishable by death. Determined to suffocate a growing unrest, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has silenced all communication between neighboring systems. Led by General Leia Organa, the Resistance has planned a secret mission to prevent their annihilation and forge a path to freedom.
Right there. Which crawl do you like better? First of all, which title do you like better? Rise of Skywalker?
Well, Duel of Fates just seems pretty cool.
Okay, so you're gonna
not to mention, you got to give it up for the band. Say the name.
Galactic Empire.
Galactic Empire, who allowed us to use their music in our opening, on our video, and everything else, and we use them on our opening. Shout out to those guys, great work. So Duel of Fates is man, that's pretty awesome. But it also it may have been a little bit more telling than The Rise of Skywalker. The Rise of Skywalker was a big conversation because nobody knew what it meant exactly. And there was a lot of questions, a lot of inquiry, and things like that. Duel of Fates is all right, these two people are going to fight. It's going to be a duel of Kylo and Rey. It's going to be a duel between the Sith and the Jedi.
The balance, the light, the dark.
Yeah. Yes, very apparent, which we'll get into a little bit later, but most of what we read, or most of what I read, came down to the fact of he was trying to balance the Force, essentially, between the light and the dark. And that's what Kylo Ren and Rey were. They were the balancing act of the Force. Pretty cool.
So are
Pretty
you
cool.
gonna go with Duel of Fates? That's your
Final
stamp.
answer, Duel of Fates.
Okay, I agree with you. Opening crawl. Which one do you like better?
So I will tell you that the opening crawl for Colin Trevorrow's Duel of Fates seems very similar, like when I started reading it, to The Phantom Menace.
How so?
So when it says the iron grip of the First Order is spread to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, it opens up that way. And I don't remember exactly, but I want to say the opening crawl said something about the fact of
The
the
Trade
Trade Federation
Federation and
as
their
a it's
blockade. Yeah, yeah.
yes. So it sounds very similar to me, and I read it the same way. May not have been the intention, but that's how I read it. So that's kind of what I was like. That sounds kind of cool. But I think when it gets to the Leia part, led by General Leia Organa, they're very similar for both opening crawls. I don't know. And this is hard because we have one story that we've seen and one that we've just been told. So I'll go with Colin's opening crawl once again.
I'm gonna have to second it, and I think the reason why I'm going to say Collins is because it paints more of a picture. It gives more exposition. It tells you the state of the galaxy, what Kylo Ren's doing, and it seems like he's in control. He's got the power that he's been wanting, that's been craving, that he felt that his grandfather never got to really have and embrace on his own. You know, his grandfather Vader was the number 2 guy. Kylo's the number 1, and I think we needed to see somebody in the Skywalker line achieve that and really stretch their wings, whether it's on the light side or the dark side, and obviously Kylo's on the dark. So I'm gonna go with Trevorrow's. All right, Johnny, what do you got next? I feel like you're skimming, you're reading.
So I was gonna try to.
So the first part, the opening act, is very much a mission.
Yes.
A submission for the movie. Long story short, this whole script was written when Carrie Fisher was kind of still alive. She was around. She was the inspiration. This was going to be her film, hands down. Hands down. You know, The Last Jedi, it's pretty Luke centric. The Force Awakens, pretty Han centric. So this is what I felt that they were going to pay homage to each one of the original big 3 in their own singular film. And I think we would have totally gotten that with this one.
Yeah, so this was written, I think it was 2016, which is before Carrie Fisher passed away. That's when he wrote it, or when it was written. And same thing, sorry. So Carrie Fisher was the focal point. Rose Tico had a much larger role in Colin's movie than she would have had in The Rise of Skywalker.
And you know what? I would have liked this version of Rose a lot better.
It did seem a little bit better.
I would have dug it. It would have been a lot of Rose redemption.
Now, granted, let's be very clear, guys, that JJ had to deal with the fact that Carrie Fisher was not physically here. And the family did not want her CGI'd. They wanted to do her justice by having pre-recorded things that they used for previous movies. And so this may have changed drastically. It could have changed. It would have. And so that's the big part of it. So this and what we see, I don't know if Colin would have been able to do this without using some type of CGI. Just based on the parts that I read and the things, I think he would have had to have used some CGI to get Carrie to where she was. But Rose was a much bigger part. Agreed. I would have liked Rose much better in Colin's movie. We also don't have Palpatine.
Yep,
not even a part of it.
No Palps.
Not even brought up. He's mentioned, but he's mentioned through a Sith holocron that Kylo Ren found as like a communication to Darth Vader about the Masters of the Sith. But Palpatine was in no way the villain in this movie. Colin was banking on Kylo. Kylo was the villain. They were using that to move forward with, and they were not going to recreate a villain after losing Snoke in The Last Jedi.
And you know what? In George Lucas's original treatment, he even McDermott's gone on record recently and said, he asked George, "Oh, does my character get to come back after getting thrown down the exhaust port of, the Death Star?" And he's like, "No, he's dead. But you can come back and you can play a younger version of him." You know what I mean? Like that was his only other time in that role, because in George's mind, that was it. Emperor was gone.
Yeah.
If Carrie Fisher hadn't have tragically passed when she did, we might have gotten the Trevorrow movie. Or something closer to it, still with J.J. helming it, but they would have used more of those nuts and bolts that Trevorrow set out. And I think that would have been fantastic. Because it tells a very impactful story. They're trying to steal a damn Death Star. Like,
yeah,
they've got a covert mission to steal a Death Star. That is ballsy.
That was my next thing.
We've never really seen that. Like somebody trying to steal a Death Star. Never seen it in live action. It's happening in the cartoons, the Clone Wars animated series, where they're trying to take over ships and whatnot. Yeah, I get it on an animated scale, but live action would have been great. Rose being more integral, Rose growing into herself, having more of a backbone, if you will, being a stronger character. And I think Kelly Marie Tran would have done a great job at it. And and you even get hints of romance between Poe and Rey.
Yeah.
And that, man, I don't know.
So that's the thing that we don't know. We can sit here all day long and say this is what the movie we wanted, but we don't know how it would have played out on the screen. We can imagine in our head, based on what we're reading, what we wanted to see. And if I remember correctly, they didn't try to steal the Death Star. They stole the Death Star.
No, not a Death Star. Star Destroyer. I'm sorry. Did I say Death Star?
No, they did. No, there was a Death Star in there too. It wasn't trying to steal a Star Destroyer.
I thought it was trying to steal a Star Destroyer, not a Death Star.
No, it was a Death Star.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I will verify one last time just to make sure, because I looked it up because I was like, and I reread it because I was like, a Death Star? Like, seriously, a Death Star? Which would take away from Episode 7, where you had Starkiller Base. And then you had the it's not the Juggernaut, the Dreadnought.
The Dreadnought. Oh, goodness.
But yeah, because I was like, wait, the Death Star's back? They're trying to steal the Death Star? Like, why is... I think it was Rey that was attempting to steal the Death Star.
Double check it real quick, man. Double check it. I thought I was goofing it.
12/16/2016 is when the script was dated. Just FYI.
I thought you were about to start quoting scripture right there. Like...
they're building a fleet of Star Destroyers. The First Order is... I hope this doesn't take too long to find. I'm just trying to find.
No, you're good. You're good. Skim it. But just from reading the bare bones of what Trevorrow was cooking up, I was digging.
You are correct.
It was a Star Destroyer, right?
The Resistance heroes come up with a new plan, steal a Star Destroyer, and I double checked it. Maybe I just really wanted it to be a Death Star.
There you go. Because when you said that, I was like, oh, that don't sound right. I thought it was a Star
Destroyer.
I just thought
still
I said
a
it
Star
wrong.
Destroyer.
That'd have been awesome. I'd have loved to see that.
Eclipse class.
Ooh. Okay, so what are some tidbits of it? Because you read a lot more of it than I did.
Yeah, so we also get a lot of new ships. One of the new ships is Knife 9, the Knife 9, which is the Knights of Ren. It's one of the Knights of Ren ships. So we don't know what that would have looked like, obviously, or what the difference would have been, but there was a lot of different ships that they were introducing, but I remember that one distinctly. And then...
Isn't that the ship that Trevorrow has in Galaxy's Edge?
The Knife 9?
Because he has a ship that they're using in Galaxy's Edge that we've never seen on screen. I wonder if that one's it.
Maybe. And as they're talking about the ship, it says it belongs to the Knights of Ren, and they're not happy with Vaughn's failure. Vaughn is a guy that's helping with the First Order. He's like somebody important. And failure to capture the Resistance infiltrators. After demanding answers from him, Itasca Ren. So the Knights of Ren get names.
Oh man, love it.
It's not Craig or Woodrow or whatever would you
Jebediah.
call Jebediah. Um, but because they're upset with Vaughn and his ability to capture these resistance infiltrators, that one of the Knights of Ren, named Itasca Ren, kills him. Like, this is where I think we would have gotten more information, more action packed from the Knights of Ren than what we got in the current movie.
Oh, hands down, we would have gotten so many more details, so many more tidbits. Got to see individual personalities of these guys and gals, and just really gotten to explore so much more from the Knights of Ren, other than just being cool and standing on cliff tops and walking around streets, on Kajimi.
Hey, we wouldn't have gotten Babu Frick though.
I'd have been okay with not having Baba.
No. Hey. Hello, my name Babu Frick. He's one of my oldest friends. And we also in his script we go back to Coruscant. And Coruscant has changed dramatically.
But
former
before you go too far on that, but like you also have like disguises. Very reminiscent of Return of the Jedi when Lando's in the disguise, hanging out at Jabba's palace. He's undercover. You got Rey in the same thing. She's in a darn Tusken Raider outfit.
Oh yeah, that's right.
In disguise, you don't know it's her until the last second. And when you do see Rey, she's clad in like black armor, black clothing, black cloaks, which is the complete opposite of everything that we've seen Rey in before, where it's always the very light colors like you've seen Luke in episode 4 and 5. So they were doing a lot of harkening back to the original trilogy, just there alone, if you ask me.
It seems like a lot of his script was like tied back to the original trilogy, which would have been a very nice like nod and helped bring the storyline together at the end for episode 9. You're back on Coruscant. You now have a First Order citadel that has been built, and the people of Coruscant are basically crushed under the First Order's mighty arm and mighty hand. It's no longer a vibrant city. Old skyline, crushed under the boot of the First Order. General Hux is now a chancellor. Like, come on.
I didn't see him much as a general. He's more of a politician.
And they also have mentioned that the Jedi Temple, they identify that underneath the Jedi Temple on Coruscant is this old communication technology. Because as mentioned in the opening crawl, Kylo has like cut communication throughout the galaxy. Like, there's no hailing anybody for help. There's no calling like your buddy on the next planet over. Like, he's cut out communication so that the Resistance cannot build, cannot seek help, cannot be able to be assisted.
He's
to be able to build the forces
feel alone. You know what I mean? And that's one of the lines that I feel JJ kind of incorporated from the Trevorrow script. The line where, like, oh, that's what the First Order does. They make you feel alone. Very similarly, if you're a system, you can't talk to your neighboring system, you can't talk to anybody, it's making them feel alone, isolated, weak. They don't have that connectivity where they can kind of get things cooking together. So I think that's kind of where they ping-ponged each other a little bit.
It's a pretty good call out. But underneath the Jedi Temple is this old technology of communication that cannot be stopped, and it is not bound by Kylo's crushing of communication. And so one of the missions is they have to get to Coruscant, they have to get under the Jedi Temple, and they have to broadcast a message to all the people that were friends of the Resistance and helped the Resistance to be able to band back together to take down the First Order. And I actually think that they said they ended up getting the message out, but it was stopped. Like the First Order was able to stop it for a bit. But David, you know this, like in with the books and everything. Has there been any mention of this type of technology before?
Not that I can recall, but you know, the Legends continuity is wild. You know, there's Centerpoint Station. There's all these crazy things. What's the Sun Crusher? I forget the name of the darn thing. But there's so much crazy random tech in the expanded universe. It's enough to make your head spin to try and keep it all straight. I don't happen to remember anything like this, but it would have been a nice addition. Let's go ahead and use old tech to surpass new tech. You know what I mean? If cell phones go down, Morse code still works. Who the hell knows how to read Morse code other than, you know, somebody that's previously served in the military, but that line of communication is still open. You know,
I
telegraphy and all that kind of stuff.
I can Google it.
You know, the internet's down. I can send you a smoke
Um,
signal, though.
but anyway, so and then you also, Luke Skywalker's here, and Dave brought this up. It wasn't something I made a note of, but he brought it up, and he thought it was kind of cool that Luke is basically haunting Kylo. And Kylo's on a search. He ends up on Mustafar, which we do see in The Rise of Skywalker, looking for the Sith holocron to be able to become the most powerful, even though he already thinks he is, supreme leader. And Luke is like kind of
he's patronizing him.
He's kind of making him feel like, and Kylo's trying to stab back at him. He even makes a comment and said, and where did your path lead? You're a ghost. And he's even trying to take him down. It's to Luke, it's not that big of a deal. And all Luke's trying to get him to do is like, dude, what are you doing? This isn't your path. This is what you should be doing. Why don't you just go back home to your mom? Go back home to Leia. Like, what are you trying to prove? What are you trying to do? And I think at this point, Luke's like, I can do my best to save you, but at the end of the day, I can't save you all. I may not be able to save you. And he has to accept that.
Well, no, and Kylo retorted to him, and he's just like, look what happened to you. You're a freaking ghost. You've got no room to talk. You can't tell me anything. You're nothing anymore. You're not of this world anymore. Like, you try to take the moral high road, but you're gone. I can do whatever the hell I want. I love it.
Yeah. And he also, and so going back as a nod back to, this is from the prequel. So Kylo also tells Luke, he will become more powerful than any Jedi, even him. And it's a line strikingly similar to what Anakin's own declaration in Revenge of the Sith was. And I was like, oh yeah. Like when I read that, I was like, that's absolutely right. Like Anakin felt that there was nobody more powerful than him. He was the top of the top. And
that's what happens when everyone tells you you're the chosen one.
You build a legend in your head. What's it called? The naming theory. Labeling theory. Sorry, not naming theory. Labeling theory. And then look what happened. He tried to take Obi-Wan on the high ground.
That's why you gotta find a short girlfriend. You'll always win.
Oh my God.
You got the high ground.
What other points would you like? I have like a few more points, but what are some of the other points that you found, Dave?
The fact that Kylo gets word to go to a planet to find the master of the Sith, the one who instructed Palpatine. That's wild right there. Is that Plagueis? Is that is this what we've been leading up to? The tragedy of Dark Plagueis the Wise. They don't really come out and say it in the article. I haven't seen they're 4-hour videos like you're talking about in total, but how awesome would it be to actually have had that blossom and just seen him for a brief instant and know that he's just all-knowing darkness. I don't know. I thought that would have been pretty sweet.
So by doing that, it would have made him canon.
Yes. Well, he's already canon because mentioned Revenge of the Sith. He's just not seen. You know what I mean? Just not seen.
I don't know. So far, and guys, granted, this is very high level. I told you the 2 videos that they posted were 2 hours each. The article that we're referencing from Star Wars News Net is 33 minutes in length to read. Like, this is high level, so don't think that we're hitting all of this.
But what I think is the wildest part, that holocron that he finds, that you mentioned, that the holocron is sentient to some point and realizing, hey, you're not Vader. You're not Vader, and the holocron punishes him and shoots him with red force lightning, deforming the guy, making him grotesque, if you will, along the lines of Palpatine, maybe worse, I don't know. I think it's worse, because when he gets back to Coruscant, he's got to seek aid, and he's got to get metal literally smelted onto his face. And they're saying, it's very similar to what we see in The Mandalorian. That's got to be ridiculously painful, not to mention the first initial scarring, but that pain echoed out, and Rey sensed it, and she felt the pain that Kylo was going through. I just think that's wild. That he had to go through those measures, and now he's somewhat mechanical like his grandfather. John, what do you think?
Sorry, I was reading that line, and it did say he was deformed like Palpatine. It just, like, that would have been a very powerful scene to see. Like, and even after that, he goes back to Coruscant, he confronts Hux, he's like, I don't need titles. And it kind of, like, to me, it feels kind of contradictory, because I'm like, yeah, but you're the one, like, I'm supreme leader. Like, I killed Snoke. I'm in charge now. And then he goes back after experiencing that. I was like, I don't need titles. I am who I am, and people listen to me because of who I am. I don't need a title to tell them what I am. And for me, I was like, damn, like, it's pretty intense.
And what's just as intense, if you ask me, is the fact that Kylo's still talking to the Vader mask. And, he tells the mask of Vader, like, you're weak. I understand what made you fall. I'm not like you. Love is what was your weakness. You allowed love to cloud your judgment, he says, throwing the helmet from the balcony to shatter on the streets below. Like, that's him just saying, I'm better than you, Cat. I'm not going down that road. Like, this is what took you down. It's not going to be the end of me. Like, that's powerful stuff. Can you imagine that scene?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, all the stuff that we've been talking about is, like, visually, I have an expectation in my head now. God forbid this movie ever, like, they ever like, oh, we're going to go ahead and make it. Like, in my head, visually, I have an expectation. Just like The Rise of Skywalker. If they would have released JJ's script and we would have been able to see it, I would have visually had stuff in my head of how things should have looked. And it would have ruined it for me. It would have completely ruined it for me. But just the scene, like, when they're putting the metal on his face to protect him, and they even talk later on in the article where he confronts Rey and the metal falls off. It's when they get to the point of the balance of the Force. And, while that's going on in Coruscant with Kylo after he was injured and gets the metal, Rey's arguing with Luke on another planet. And she's talking about the balance. The dark suffocates the light extinguishes the dark, over and over. How is that balance in the Force? And they have an exchange with each other, and it says, Rey, I've spent my whole life wanting a family. I've got one now. I won't abandon them. And Luke says, the Force is speaking to you. Rey, maybe I'm not who the Force thinks I am. Luke, who are you? Rey, I'm no one. Luke, if you really believe these things, then maybe the Last Jedi is dead. Rey, maybe he is. Like, even that conflict, that controversy between Rey thinking, and you hear that a lot, like, in the movies where she's like, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I can't finish this. Maybe I'm not the right person that y'all think I am. And you even hear that in The Rise of Skywalker, where she goes back to the planet where Luke was and was in exile, or not exile, in solitude. And it's like, I'm going to stay here. I can't do this. I'm done. It's like, girl, come on.
Heck, while you got that, you got Kylo talking to this ancient dark being that is, said to live some 7,000 years. Unknown species. We know Darth Plagueis was described as a immune in the novel Darth Plagueis, but we never really get that confirmation in Revenge of the Sith. And Kylo even says, "Hey, like when asked, he trained Darth Plagueis. Valum says the name means nothing to him. Like, hey, let's skip over. Let's just get to the good part, kid." And tells him straight up, like, hey, you've got remorse. You have all these feelings that you're not supposed to have. You're not a true Sith. You wish to obtain the power of those who came before. Take your place among the gods of Mortis.
Yeah.
Then you start going to the Mortis, saga and the Clone Wars. They touched on it also in freaking Rebels. Everything's coming full circle. It would have been mind blowing
Absolutely would have been mind
to bring
blowing.
Mortis into the real canon. Well, not real canon, but live action.
And I think that's, and I can kind of see, when you see the Rise of Skywalker and you kind of see the plan that 7, 8, and then 9, I honestly think that they were concerned about, okay, what's going to happen if this was the movie that was released? And they said, hey, we parted ways due to creative differences. And Kathleen Kennedy has gone on record saying Colin didn't do anything wrong. It's just, we realize that these movies take a lot of work and it's a lot of thought process and it's a lot of understanding. And some people, it's just very hard for them to get that if they haven't been through it since the beginning, which, beg to differ, you can argue the fact that was Rian Johnson with it. Was he with it from the beginning? Why did that movie go through? And maybe that's what they say. It's being political, and the real reason is, hey, we don't need another Last Jedi backlash. We don't need to do that all over again and see what happens. But I'm going to tell you right now, based on what I read in the script and what I'm imagining in my mind could be possible, that's a pretty good script. Pretty good script.
It's wild either way you slice it.
Are you still reading it over there?
Oh yeah, I'm trying to digest this last little bit.
We get a little bit about Rey's name and where she's from, except it's not the name, obviously. Palpatine's not in this one, but Rey's name came down to Rey Salona. Dave calls her Barcelona. The movie ultimately ends with Rey training a new batch of Jedi, and that's how the movie would have ended for Colin. And in reality, it's all about bringing balance to the Force between the light and the dark. Would have been a pretty interesting concept. I don't know how. To me, I felt that, and I know you said this didn't melt your mind, Dave, but for me, I thought JJ did a great job of kind of bringing everything together at the very end. Colin's got some great high points here, where he references back to the original trilogy, to the prequel trilogy, and like kind of helps bring that back together. It would have been interesting to see, and I may have changed my opinion. I know it didn't melt your mind, but at the end of the day, I thought the closing was kind of cool. It was paying homage. It was putting a close to that trilogy, or to that saga, and to those two characters, which many people have grown up with and many people have grown to love. So I don't know.
Either way, Rise of Skywalker, JJ brought us a movie. This is the movie we got. Would I have loved to seen, a parallel universe where Carrie Fisher did not pass, and we get to see what Trevorrow had cooked up? Yeah, hell yeah, I would have loved it. Just as I would have loved to see a lot of those behind the scenes artwork from Rise of Skywalker that got, not leaked, but they're out there because they're going to be in a book. I would have loved to seen some of those scenes. You're always going to want more. You're always going to wish, oh man, I wonder if they would have done this or that. Or, oh, would it have been great if they would have tied this together. Yeah, that's human nature. I always wanted to get that connectivity, get everything a little bit more aligned and not have so much air of mystery about it. But, the hand that we were dealt, we lost one of the main actors or actresses, I should say, that this film was supposed to revolve around.
Mm-hmm.
That changed the game. It did. Changed the game. For better or worse.
Heavily. It was a game changer. Absolutely. It still makes you say if though. It's like one of those things that you never want to have any regrets. I'm like, I don't have regrets, but I'm also like, man.
And then you got Lando arriving with a fleet of smugglers while Rey and Kylo are battling on top of a mountain on the Mortis planet. Like, how awesome is that?
Yeah, there was one.
You see Bosk. Like, I love Bosk.
Yeah, there was one point where there was like 6 or 7 different storylines going on at one point, and that's when they were even saying like, "Hey, this is where it gets a little complicated. Like, there's a lot going on right now." So just as a heads up, and I'm like, I can honestly say that probably nothing will ever come of this. Obviously, we talked earlier about who they've released it or why they released it, but it's probably fan service and really in reality. But they're not going to just write Rise of Skywalker off the books and say that it never existed. This is pretty cool. We can read it, but we may never get to see it. We'll never get to see it. But I don't know. The story was pretty cool. Unless, Dave, you're going to make it out of like paper figures, do a movie.
I'll open up some Black Series figures, but I think the best part is, throughout this movie, or from what it seems, that Rey is wrestling with feelings of love, of remorse, of anger, of hate, and she's drawn to Poe from a physical attraction kind of thing, and she knows that Poe digs him. I'm sure it doesn't hurt that she can read Poe's mind, I'm sure, and kind of figure out what he's thinking at times using the Force. But there's a part where she tells Leia, like, "Hey, I'm not supposed to feel this way. I'm not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to do that. It's against the ways of the Jedi." And Leia says something to the effect of like, "Hey, they're not around anymore. It's just you. You can do whatever the hell you want. Like, don't let your life be on a path that someone's not here to tell you to go left or right. You do your own thing." And I think that's evident when, Rey even says, "Our masters were wrong. I will not deny my anger, and I will not reject my love. I am the darkness. I am the light." Like, that's her totally embodying and embracing the balance of the Force. Not just plugging the podcast here, but she's living that line where she can use the best of both worlds. She can tap into her anger, her hate, her passion, as well as the empathy and sympathy of the Jedi, the selflessness. That's the ultimate balance, being able to do that and not be completely corrupt or completely dogmatic. And I think that's what this script was going towards. No.
By the way, guys, we did not change our name to Balance of the Force because of the script. We had no idea it existed.
Or did we?
It's just a cool name that we came up with based on the fact that David is a Sith and I'm a Jedi.
Well, when you say it like that, John, just take some of the allure out of it.
But you know what? You can get your official Balance of the Force, a Star Wars podcast, T-shirts, coffee mugs, tapestries, computer bags, stickers, handbags, pillows, keychains, whatever you want. Head on over to tpublic.com, search Balance of the Force, and you'll find all of our cool items up there. And you can go to checkout, and we appreciate your support. All those designs were not done specifically by Dave, but he had his hand in making sure they were doing the right thing. And all I did was upload them. So go check them out. I actually ordered a new tapestry that will be my backdrop. It should be here for our next episode. So go check it out, tpublic.com. Thanks, guys, for helping out. What else, Dave?
You know,
I feel like you can continue to sit here and talk about this.
I want to, but we got to go. We're only doing a high level thing. You know, I'm gonna try and push through the vid, those 2 hour vids, kind of watch it, get a little bit more in depth, get a little cozy with it, get weird, and think about what Trevorrow would have brought to the table if this would have been live action.
Then when Dave has beers with him in a couple of months, he'll ask him, "What up, yo?"
I'm like, what up, Trevorrow?
I like that.
Let's make a safety not guaranteed too.
Oh man, that's a good movie. I wasn't on board with it at first, guys. Dave recommended it. Most movies Dave recommends are all right, and but Safety Guaranteed was a pretty good movie. So, guys, hit us up on our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Let us know what you think of the podcast. Open a discussion line about today's episode, what we talk about. We'd love to hear from you guys. You can find us on those social medias at SW Pod Balance. We already mentioned T Public. If you're in the what is it? What am I trying to say? If you're in the market for a lightsaber, head on over to our friends at ultrasabers.com. Pick out any lightsaber you want, as long as it's not clearance and it doesn't work on accessories. Once you put it in the cart, head on over to the coupon code, enter Force Fields, all one word, all caps, and you'll receive 10% off from Balance of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. As I just said, we are Balance of the Force, a Star Wars podcast. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Once more, the Sith will rule the galaxy.